We've got matinee games tomorrow, which means I'm going to do the preview tonight, which means it's going to post extremely late for those of you that are on the East Coast and extremely late for those of you that are on the West Coast. Good morning, Europe. There you go. So all the way you look at it is, yeah, I'm posting this late for certain people, but for others, it's delightfully early in the morning. They're like, hey, tea and crumpets and some THG. That's probably like 3 people that might have tea and crumpets first thing in the morning. I don't even think the Brits do it anymore. All right, first up, here we go. Boston Bruins coming off of a win tonight. Get to go in against the LA Kings tomorrow, or today, depending on which day it is where you are. The 33-17-8 Boston Bruins in against the 23-28-6 LA Kings. So Boston, a lot of momentum going for them. They've won 4 in a row. Let's take a look over their last 5. They just won at Anaheim 3-0. They won versus Chicago 6-3. They won versus Colorado 2-1. Versus LA, they won 5-4. And at the New York Rangers, they lost 4-3. That's the 4 wins in a row. Before that, they lost against the Rangers. The LA Kings, they lost versus Vancouver, of course, 4-3 in a shootout. They lost 6-4 at Washington. They lost 5-4 at Boston. They lost at Philadelphia, or they won at Philadelphia 3-2, and they won at New Jersey 5-1. On the road, Boston's now 12-10-5, so that improved today. Versus the Pacific, they're 8-2-2, whereas LA is 12-13-2 at home. Versus the Atlantic, they're 2-7-2, and of course, as you can see on the board, Boston won their one matchup so far. This is matchup number 2. Goals leaders for Boston. Pastrnak, of course, is number 1 with 31 goals. Assist leaders, that's Marchand with 47, top assist guy. Points per game played, well, Bergeron leads there with a 1.26. Shots, Pastrnak leads there with a 206. So, with Pastrnak out, you're losing your number 1 guy for generating shots and for generating goals. So, the fact that Boston is 2-0 without him, that's impressive. Goaltenders, I haven't checked. Let me check. So, of the goaltenders, very, very few that are confirmed at this late time of night the day before. However, Tuukka Rask has been confirmed at 18, 8-4, 920 save percentage. Halak will back him up at 15, 9-4, and a 923 save percentage. So again, for anybody who says, well, Rask should be up for the Vezina, when you've got a good tandem, that almost never happens. On the LA side, goals leaders Kopitar, 17. Assist leader is Doughty at 26. Points per game played, Kopitar at a 0.75 clip. Shots leader is Tyler Toffoli with 161. Goaltending, I expect Quick here. He's 11-14-5 with an 898 save percentage. Campbell is 7-9 with a 933 save percentage. That being said, almost anything can happen this close to the trade deadline. Maybe you play Campbell a little bit more. Maybe Quick gets the start. All I know is that LA really needs to start putting some wins together, because that thought of maybe we got a shot, they're now 8 points out of the playoffs. So if they lose this one tomorrow, then that should 100% finish it, and then we're looking at a pure sale at the deadline. If they can stay within shouting distance, it'd be interesting to see what management would do there, but I don't foresee that happening. All right, next up. Now, next on the board is a matchup that I'm not a big fan of, to be honest. The 26-26-7 Vancouver Canucks going against the San Jose Sharks at 34-17-7, and the Sharks should be kind of ornery in this one. Vancouver kind of struggled in their last game against San Jose. I actually don't have it on the board there, but I remember when it was. Over their last 6 games, I guess we'll qualify it as, Vancouver won at LA 4-3. They lost at Anaheim 1-0. That was after losing at home against the San Jose Sharks 7-2. They won versus Calgary 4-3. They lost at Chicago 4-3 and lost at Washington 3-2. It's been a tough time for Canuck fans, but honestly, it's been nowhere near as bad as was expected. On the San Jose side, over their last 5, I should say, they lost versus Washington 5-1. They won at Vancouver 7-2, of course. They won at Edmonton 5-2. They won at Calgary 5-2, and they won at Winnipeg 3-2. Love that road trip. The first game back from a road trip can be difficult. Absolutely 100% can be difficult. You look at LA, they went on this nice long road trip, come home and lose against Vancouver. Long road trip for San Jose. They come home. They lose against Washington. It's not that unusual to have a letdown your first game back. And now they get to play against Vancouver, a team that they've kind of feasted on. Shark metaphor meant. On the road, Vancouver's now 13-15-4 versus the Pacific. They're 8-7-3. At home, San Jose's 18-5-4, and versus the Pacific, they're 14-4-3. And San Jose's won both meetings with Vancouver this year by a combined score of 11-2. Goals leader for Vancouver, of course, is that Swedish kid. 26 goals. He also leads the team in assists with 27 and leads the team in points per game at 1.10. He's kind of pretty sort of good. Shots leader is actually Bo Horvat at 168 shots. Goaltenders, I expect Markstrom in this one. He's 26-16-6, or 22-16-6 with a .911 save percentage. Mazanix is still the backup as far as I know, hasn't played a game yet. On the San Jose side, their leading goal scorer is Pavelski with 30. Assist leader is Burns with 52. He's also the points per game played leader with a 1.09 points per game played. Shots leader is Evander Kane at 221. Goaltenders, I kind of expect Dell here. Just a gut instinct. May very well be Jones, though. Jones is 27-11-4 with an .898 save percentage. Dell is 7-6-3 with an .892 save percentage. I don't foresee a very close game in this one, and I'm just being completely honest. San Jose is one of the top 3 or 4 best teams in the league right now, I would say. And I don't necessarily just mean like overall standings, I would say in terms of where they're at. And Vancouver isn't. And I don't have any doubt about that. It's not a big deal. It doesn't bother me. I didn't anticipate that they would be. I just hope nobody gets hurt. As a Canuck fan, I don't want to see anybody get hurt, and it'll be nice to see Gaudette continue on the road he started with the LA game. Be nice to see him get points and play really well. But either way, just get out of there without any more injuries. Next up, Dallas. So Dallas on the road's a bit of a misadventure, and now they're in against Carolina. Carolina's playing so well; they're 1 point out of the playoffs. They can be in the playoffs by the end of the night on Saturday. Would anybody be surprised if they were? Well, it depends on when you ask. If you asked earlier this week, people would say no. But if you asked a couple months ago, people would say Carolina's not getting near the playoffs. 29-23-5 is the record for Dallas. 30-22-6 is the record for Carolina. Dallas is lucky that losing to Tampa didn't count as 2 losses. The way they lost that one 6-0. Hoof. And that was their most recent loss. Before that, they won at Florida 3-0. They lost at Arizona 3-2. They lost at Nashville 3-2. Before that, they won versus Arizona 5-4. Not feeling this road trip as a Dallas fan. They've lost 3 out of 4, and now they're going in against Carolina. The good news is Carolina already played tonight, but they beat Edmonton 3-1. At Ottawa, they won 4-1. At New Jersey, they lost 3-2. At the Rangers, they won 3-0. And at Buffalo, they won 6-5. They won 4 out of 5 on that road trip. Before that home win tonight against Edmonton. That's the first time they've done that since 1998. That's how well Carolina's playing. And that's kind of how bad the team's history has been. It's kind of a both thing there. On the road, Dallas is 11-15-3. So they've only won 11 out of 29 games on the road. That's bad. Versus the Metro, they're 4-7, also bad. At home, Carolina's 15-9-4 versus the Central, they're 4-3, and this is the first time these two teams have met each other this year. I don't necessarily see this ending well, but again, there's a lot of cynicism I have built in when Dallas is on the road. Their goals leader is Sagan with 24. He's played very well lately. Assist, Radulov leads there with 31. Points per game played, Radulov leads there as well with 0.98, but Sagan's close. Shots leader is Sagan with 224. Goaltenders, I expect Hudobin, unless Bishop's good to go. I doubt it. Hudobin's 10-11-3, 922 save percentage. It took a beating against Tampa, as did everybody else. Bishop's 19-12-2 with a 924. And Bow, if he has to come in, he's got no record, but he's a 947 save percentage. On the Carolina side of things, Aho is the leader in goals with 24, assists with 42. That means he leads in points with 66. Points per game played with 1.14, which is the highest on the board of anybody other than Bergeron so far. Shots leader is still Dougie Hamilton with 179. Goaltenders, I expect Mrazek because McElhinney played tonight. Mrazek's 12-12-3 with an 897 save percentage. McElhinney is 15-6-1 now with a 920 save percentage. That kid's pretty alright. And since he's 35 and I'm older than that, I can actually refer to him as a kid. It's allowed. It's okay. Yeah, we'll see. I will say this, McElhinney's mask he wore in the game tonight, that's as close to a perfect mask as you can get, I think. It's up there. I like the subtlety. I like the fact that it's just white with gray tones and grayscale. It's really, really, really sharp. That said, I would be very surprised if Carolina doesn't win tomorrow. Next up, Nashville in against Vegas. So Nashville looks like they may be getting themselves back on track after kind of a wobble there. And Vegas is trying to break a 5-game losing streak at home. This would be 6. They don't want to set these kinds of records. Now, 34-21-5 is the record for Nashville. 31-24-4 is the record for Vegas. They're close, but Nashville does have the better record. Vegas, this is where you have to show up. And Nashville's played really well against Vegas so far this year. Now, over Nashville's last 5, they won versus Montreal 5-1. They lost versus Detroit 3-2. They lost versus St. Louis 5-4. So those 3 games at home, they only won one of them, and that was against Montreal. They lost at St. Louis 3-2, and they won against Dallas 3-2. But that was at home. Dallas was on the road, so you do the math. On the Vegas front, it's been rough the last couple of weeks. They've lost at home versus Toronto 6-3, lost versus Arizona 5-2, lost versus Columbus 4-3. They won at Detroit 4-3, and of course at Tampa they won 3-2, which is why I held off on doing the video I did today on Vegas until now. I wanted to see, are they going to pull through? Are they going to start putting up those tremendous numbers again? And they just haven't. On the road, Nashville's 15-10-4 versus the Pacific. They're 8-8-1, kind of a pedestrian record. And yet, they play well against Vegas. They've won both meetings with Vegas this year. At home, Vegas is 16-9-3, so even though they've lost 5 in a row at home, their home record is still pretty solid. Versus the Central, they're 6-6. So, Vegas has a chance to turn it around tomorrow. They're going to have to stop somebody, though, and that's Victor Arvidsson. He leads Nashville in goals with 26. He's kind of been a monster. Assist leader, Johansson with 42. Points leader, points per game, is Arvidsson with .94. Shots leaders, Yossi with 202. Goaltenders, I expect Rene in this one. This is a big one. 20-15-3 with a .915 save percentage. Saros is 14-6-2 with a .913 save percentage. On the Vegas side of things, their goals leader is Marchessault with 19. Their assist leader is Tuck with 24. Points per game played, that is actually Stastny with a .79, which is low compared to other teams on the board. Marchessault leads in shots with 213. Goalies, I expect Fleury. Sorry, I do. I will always expect Fleury. Subban's 2-5 with a .903 save percentage. Fleury is 29-18-4 with a .908 save percentage. That being said, I would play Subban here if I was Gerard Gallant. I'm not, though, so grain of salt time on that one. But I would absolutely put the backup in this one because they really need to get Fleury some rest. The guy's been playing a ton. And there's at some point he's going to break down if he hasn't started already. His numbers have been coming down over the last couple of weeks, as have Vegas's in general. You might as well put him on the bench and give him a couple of nights off. Next up, Montreal in against Tampa. So Montreal 31-19-7. Solid overall record for them. Tampa 43-11-4. Now, Montreal's winless in 2. They lost one in regulation, and before that they lost in overtime. So the media is going to portray them as struggling in Canada. Anyways, over their last 5, they did lose at Nashville 3-1. They lost at home against Toronto 4-3. But before that, they beat Winnipeg 5-2 at home. They beat Anaheim at home 4-1, and they beat Edmonton at home 4-3. So they're not bad. They're 3-1-1 in their last 5. As for the Tampa Bay Lightning, remember when they were struggling? It's still on the board that they were, but can we remember? Because I can't. They beat Dallas 6-0. They beat Calgary 6-3. They beat Pittsburgh 5-4. So they've scored 17 goals in their last 3 games. That's not bad. They lost versus St. Louis 1-0, and they lost versus Vegas 3-2. So it's a long homestand for Tampa, and it continues tomorrow against Montreal. Montreal is a very unenviable task here. Playing a very comfortable, rested, and quite happy, and playing very well Tampa Bay Lightning team. All of those things combined, that doesn't look good for Montreal. But if they lose this one, it doesn't mean they're suddenly in trouble and they're in peril. Yes, they're at 69 points. Yes, that's only 3 points ahead of Carolina, but it's more of a statement of how well Carolina's playing than how poorly Montreal's playing. Anyways, goals leader for Montreal is Gallagher at 22. Assist leader is Domi with 32. Points per game played, well, that's Max Domi with .86. Shots, Gallagher leads there with 204. Goaltenders, it's going to be Carey Price. He's 23, 14, and 5 with a .915 save percentage. Niemi's 8, 5, and 2 with an .893 save percentage. This is one of those games Price is going to need to steal. And we'll see if he's up to the task tomorrow. Tampa's points leaders and all that other stuff. Their goals leader is Braden Point with 33. Their assist leader is Kucherov with 66. He leads the league in points with 92 overall. Yeah, it's been a pretty good season for Kucherov, I would say. Shots leader is Stamkos with 178 goaltenders. I'm expecting Vasi here, but if they go with Domingue, he's won 10 in a row. 18-4 is Domingue's record with a .907 save percentage. Vasilevsky, 24-7 and 4, .927 save percentage, and yeah, he's probably my pick for the Vezina if I had a vote right now today. I'd probably go with Vasilevsky. But that's just me. And I understand that Domingue's played a lot of games as well, but Domingue has not played as well as Vasi. There is a big difference between those two goaltenders. Vasi's the better goaltender. That's why as soon as he's healthy again, they go back to playing him constantly. It is going to be a tough challenge for the Montreal Canadiens to overcome Tampa in Tampa. That being said, I'm not counting Montreal out because I've been learning this year that is a bad idea. This is an odd-numbered year, like it's 18-19, and they usually do well in odd-numbered years. So if that holds true to form, this could be your upset of the night tomorrow. All right, next up, last one on this board, is Ottawa. The hapless Senators in against the kind of hapless recently Winnipeg Jets. Kind of been problems. I understand that they're still up at the top and all that, but if Nashville wins and they lose in regulation, it kind of goes a little bit sideways for them. So they have to beat an Ottawa Senators team that's kind of loosey-goosey, and they have nothing to lose. And the one thing that could happen is, of course, trades before this game happens. Could. Absolutely. If Pierre Dorian's going to get out ahead of this, trade him on the weekend. Do it. Anyways, Ottawa's 21, 31, and 5, whereas Winnipeg's 36, 19, and 3. Over their last 5, Ottawa lost at Detroit 3-2. They lost versus Carolina 4-1. Of course, they beat Winnipeg 5-2. They also beat Anaheim 4-0, and before that they lost at Toronto 5-4. Oh, Tampa Bay's won both games with Montreal, for those that aren't seeing the board. So Tampa's won that season series so far. All right, back to this. Of course, Winnipeg's coming off of a 4-1 loss to Colorado, a team that had lost 8 in a row. They won versus the Rangers 4-3. They won at Buffalo 3-1, but before that they lost to these Ottawa Senators 5-2, and they lost to Montreal 5-2. So they've won 2 out of the 5 that they've played most recently. There is probably something to be said for Winnipeg kind of struggling. Now, on the road, Ottawa's a miserable 7-19-1. Just miserable. Versus the Central, they're 4-6-1. At home, Winnipeg has a record of 21-7-3, which is excellent. And versus the Atlantic, they're 6-5-1. Now, Ottawa won the only matchup, as you can see on the board, between these two teams. Does that have any effect on tomorrow? Not really. I would expect Winnipeg to win this one, but again, do not underestimate Ottawa's chances to play spoiler. They did it to Winnipeg very, very recently, and they took out Anaheim in a shutout recently as well. So they can play spoiler. Goals leaders for Ottawa. Stone and Duchesne both have 26. Assist leader is Chabot with 33. Shots leaders, Stone and Chabot both have 137. Goaltending, I expect Nilsson here. He's 9-14-1 with a 914 save percentage. That's kind of nice synergy right there. But if he loses, I want him to go to 915-1 and a 915 save percentage. I want that synergy to stay there. Anderson's 14-17-3 with a 904 save percentage. Of course, points per game played leader on Ottawa. I initially forgot that, so I included it after. That's Duchesne at 1.13. On the Winnipeg side, I'm tired. So I'm just going to say straight out, I'm recording this at midnight. I apologize for any and all misspeaking that happens. But I know I have to do this before bed, because if I try to do it in the morning, by the time it uploads, the game's already started. Shifley leads Winnipeg in goals with 30. Wheeler leads them in assists with 56. That's pretty impressive. Shots, Laine still leads in shots with 191. Who knew? Goaltenders, Brossoit and Hellebuck. I expect Hellebuck in this one. Brossoit's 10-3-1 with a 934 save percentage. Hellebuck's 26-16-2, 911 save percentage. Every game's important, so I kind of expect Hellebuck in there, but I wouldn't blame them for going with Brossoit. Points per games played leaders. There's two there. Shifley and Wheeler both have a 1.17. So very solid numbers all around for Winnipeg. In every category, they look better than Ottawa, but that hasn't stopped them from playing down to teams that are below them in the standings, whether it's Colorado, Ottawa, or, yes, even Montreal. And I know Montreal's having a pretty solid season, but when you look at the overall standings, Winnipeg is supposed to be the better team, and they didn't look that way against Montreal. So for Winnipeg, they've gone through kind of a lull. Every team does it. It doesn't mean that they're going to fall apart or not be a really solid team in the playoffs. It just means this is their down point during the season. So there we go. I'm going to go ahead and switch boards. Okay, on board number 2, we got the Toronto Maple Leafs in against Arizona. This is a mismatch, but Arizona did beat Toronto in Toronto. So can Arizona sweep the season series? This is a good chance for us to find out, isn't it? Now, Toronto's 36-18-3. Arizona's 25-27-5. And Arizona fans will tell you we are only 5 points out of the playoffs. We are not out of this by a long shot. This game tomorrow night could very well be one of those deciders for management that says, all right, we can maybe rent at the deadline. Maybe we can look to make some upgrades, or say, you know what, we're just going to stay the course. We've made some improvements this year. We're probably not going to make the playoffs. This is one of those games that'll probably make that decision for them. Now, over their last 5 games, of course, Toronto won at Vegas 6-3. They won at Colorado 5-2. At the New York Rangers, they lost 4-1. They won at Montreal 4-3. So they're trying to make it 4 out of 5 on this road trip. Versus Ottawa, they won 5-4. So overall, they've won 4 of their last 5. They're playing very, very well. It just gets hidden because it's kind of expected Toronto's going to play well. They sit firmly behind the Tampa Bay Lightning, so we don't really pay much attention other than, Toronto's still number 2. Anyways, Arizona, they do have their struggles to score at times. They got shut out by St. Louis 4-0 in their last game in Arizona. At Vegas, they won 5-2. Huge win for them there. Versus Dallas, they won 3-2. Versus Columbus, they lost 4-2. At Nashville, they lost 5-2. On the road, Toronto's 19-7-2 versus the Pacific, a very impressive 9-2. Whereas the Coyotes are 10-14-3 at home, and versus the Atlantic, they're a woeful 4-7. Arizona did win the only matchup between these two teams this year. We'll see if Arizona sweeps the season series. Your goals leader for Toronto, Tavares, 33. Assist leaders, Marner with 48, but points per games played, that's Matthews at 1.23. Very solid number. I'm sure Toronto fans probably have it memorized, along with his contract details and all these other things. Your shots leader for Toronto is Tavares at 204. Goaltenders, I kind of expect Freddie here. Sparks is 7-4-1 with a 908 save percentage. Anderson's 27-11-2 with a 923 save percentage. On the Arizona side of things, Galchenyuk leads the team in goals with 12. Assist leader is Keller with 27. Points per games played, Keller, 0.67 there. Shots leader is Stepan with 155. Goaltenders, Darcy Kemper has a pretty solid record. I expect him to start here, which would make Pickard the backup. He's 4-4-2 with an 875 save percentage. Kemper's 13-14-5 with a 911 save percentage. I got a kick out of on Leafs Lunch today. Gord Miller talking to Andy Petrello about her opinion of Freddie Anderson, that He can do no wrong in that if she walked in and Freddie Anderson was standing over a dead body holding a smoking gun, she would make up something that must have happened to make somebody drop dead and the gun just fly into the hands of Freddie Anderson. And there are players that I admit I kind of do that same thing with. So you know what? I admire her for her honesty in it. That she's talking about a kind of a boneheaded play made by Anderson where he tries to freeze the puck and decides not to, and it ends up with a goal in the back of his own net. But again, you know, it's easy to say, yeah, well, maybe in these situations with this happening. I totally understood what she was talking about. I thought it was fine. All right. That being said, let us move along to Calgary. The Flames. All this talk about them stepping back. And let's be honest. They outplayed Florida and they outplayed Vancouver. They lost both games in shootouts. If they're ties, we're not talking about how they're really struggling, but because they show up as losses, right? Even though it's in a shootout, then the conversation becomes, oh, Calgary's struggling. I'm a bit surprised by a move Calgary's announced for this game, but we'll get to that. 34-16-7 is Calgary's record, whereas the Pittsburgh Penguins are 30-20-7. And the Penguins, they're right on that line, right? 67 points. They're looking over their shoulder at the Carolina Hurricanes that have 66. Over their last 5, Calgary loses at Florida 3-2, shootout of course. They lost at Tampa 6-3, and they lost at Vancouver 4-3, again in a shootout. Markstrom steals the game. Guy's been playing great. Versus San Jose, they lost 5-2. So overall, when you look at it, you go, well, they've lost 4 in a row. At Carolina, they won 4-3. So that rounds out their record over their last 5. It's actually 1-2-2. So they've won 1 out of their last 5, which, yes, looks bad. It looks like, oh, they're doing horrible. They're not really, though. And this is a good chance for them. Now, Pittsburgh comes into this playing relatively well. They won versus Edmonton, 3-1. Of course, they won at Philadelphia, 4-1. This game also marks the return of Evgeny Malkin to the lineup after his 1-game suspension. At Tampa, they lost 5-4. At Florida, they lost 3-2. Versus Carolina, they won 4-0. So, or they lost that one 4-0. Why does that say 4-0 for them? No, they lost that one 4-0. See, even half asleep, I'm looking at that going, no, they didn't. I watched that game. They lost that one 4-0. All right. On the road, Calgary 17-11-2 versus the Metro. They're 6-2-1. Whereas Pittsburgh at home is 16-10-4 versus the Pacific. They're 9-4-1. Now, Pittsburgh won the only matchup between these two teams. It was early on in the year. It was when Pittsburgh made that trip through the West Coast and decimated every team on the West Coast, and then went back home feeling pretty good about themselves, and then things went off the track not long after that. And Calgary doesn't want to make these guys feel good about themselves tomorrow night at all. They're going to be looking for some revenge after that huge lopsided loss they suffered against the Penguins early in the year. Your goals leaders for Calgary, both Monahan and Gaudreau have 29 assists. Gaudreau has 49. Points per game, Gaudreau leads there with 1.37. He also leads in shots with 183. I expect Riddick, however, they've announced Mike Smith will start this game. So Riddick will be the backup. He's 25-5 with a 911 save percentage. Smith's 14-11-2 with an 891 save percentage. Here's how I see it. I see it that Bill Peters is looking at his goaltenders and saying, all right, I'm going to go with the veteran because I think that going into a playoff chase and that stretch drive, I want the veteran in there. Now, we can talk about how Riddick's got the better record and Riddick's got the better numbers. But so far, whatever Coach Bill Peters touches works. He has a Midas touch. We'll see if he has it again. In this case, it's with Mike Smith. On the Pittsburgh side of things, their goals leaders, Jake Gensel with 27. Malkin and Crosby both have 42 assists to lead there. Points per game played, well, it's Crosby with 1.22. Crosby's numbers are fantastic. Shots leader is Letang with 172. Goaltenders, I expect Murray here because I've been playing Murray a lot lately. DeSmith's 13-10-5 with a 916 save percentage. Murray 17-9-1 also has a 916 save percentage. So that's not too shabby. This could end up being the game of the night. Next up, Oilers. Now they got to play the Islanders. In a rematch of the 1983 and 1984 Stanley Cup Final, I bring to you the best team that the New York Islanders has put on the ice probably since that 84 final, and an Oilers team that, no, I can't make a comparison between them and the 80s Oilers at all. No, it's just not there. The Oilers, it just keeps getting worse. You know, they've lost 4 out of 5. They're down to 24, 28, and 5 now. The Islanders are 34, 17, and 6. This looks like a complete and total mismatch. That being said, it did between Winnipeg and Colorado as well, and Colorado won that. So this could be a chance for an Akbar magnet if I hadn't already packed them. They're already packed. They're gone. Edmonton, their last 5 games, they lost at Carolina tonight 3-1. They lost at Pittsburgh 3-1. They lost versus San Jose 5-2. They lost at Minnesota 4-1, or they won at Minnesota 4-1. I'm so used to saying lost, it just keeps coming out, right? They lost versus Chicago 6-2, and that was just awful. 2-1 lead in that one, and the 2 games prior to that they lost where they had a lead going to the third period or in the third period itself. On the Islanders side of things, they won at Columbus 3-0. Nice statement game after they had lost at Buffalo 3-1. They won versus Minnesota 2-1. They won versus Colorado 4-3 in overtime. They won at New Jersey 2-1. So not a lot of scoring going on with the Islanders, but their defense and their goaltending is fantastic. On the road, the Oilers are now 12-13-4 versus the Metro. They're 3-5-2. The Islanders are 17-7-4 at home, and versus the Pacific, they're 6-4. This is the first meeting of the former 83 and 84 Stanley Cup finalists, and that means they'll meet again in Edmonton before the end of the season. Goals leader for the Oilers is Draisaitl with 34. Your assist leader is McDonald with 51. Points per game played, McDavid with 1.46. That's excellent, but he seems really, really frustrated right now. He's your shots leader with 173. Goaltenders, I expect Koskinen again because Stolarz would be the backup. I think the plan would have been to play Talbot had he still been in town, but since Talbot's been traded, it'll probably be Koskinen again. He's 14-13-2 with a 907 save percentage. Stolarz 4-3-3 with a 902 save percentage. I think it was a good move by the Oilers. I really do. On the Islanders side of things, Lee is their leading goal scorer with 18, which highlights the fact that they're getting scoring by committee. 18 goal scorer, and you're about 60 games into the season, and he's your leading guy, and you're number 1 in your division. That's some good defense and goaltending. Assists leader is Barzal with 33. He also leads the team in points per game at 0.86. Shots leader is Lee with 144. Goalies, doesn't really matter. Again, while Leonard gets all the attention, Greiss, his numbers are actually kind of better. He's 17-8-2 now with a 930 save percentage. Leonard's 17-9-4 with a 928 save percentage. But Leonard's the better story, so you're going to hear more about him because of, you know, his trials at the end of his time in Buffalo and how he struggled and he had all these personal demons and he's conquered them with the Islanders. It makes for a better story than, well, Greiss was crap last year in New York with the Islanders, but he's good this year. That's not as compelling a story. But yeah, so this looks like a slaughter. Because for me, Edmonton, I think, is just kind of done. Next up, Detroit. 23-28-7. And they're playing spoiler well over the last couple of weeks. Flyers are 26-24-7. Do not take the Red Wings lightly. Don't do it. Over their last 5, Detroit, they won 3-2 versus the Ottawa Senators. They won 3-2 at Nashville. There's that spoiler thing. They lost at Chicago 5-2. They lost at Buffalo 3-1. They barely got knocked out by Vegas 4-3. They only lost by 1 goal there at home. On the Philly side of things, they beat Minnesota 5-4. They lost versus Pittsburgh 4-1. They beat Anaheim 6-2. They lost to LA 3-2, and they beat Vancouver 2-1. So Philly, it feels like, are slowly coming back to earth, but there's still hope there. There's absolutely hope there that they're going to make the playoffs. Now, whether or not that hope is going to be rewarded, that's the question. On the road, Detroit is 11-15-3 versus the Metro. They're 6-8-2. On the Philly side of things at home, they're now 14-11-4. Remember, these guys were below 500 for a lot of this season at home. Versus the Atlantic, they're 7-6-2. So the numbers for Philly are all trending in the right direction, and they did beat Detroit in the one meeting these teams have had this year. Your goals leader is Larkin with 24 for the Red Wings. Assist leader is Nyquist with 33. Until he gets traded, he'll be their leading assists guy. Points per games played, Larkin, 0.95 per game. Shots, Larkin again at 220. Goaltending, Not Larkin here. Surprise, surprise. Howard's listed as the likely starter with Bernier as the backup. Bernier 6-13-2, 897 save percentage. If Howard doesn't start, he's probably been traded. He's 17-15-5, 915 save percentage. In against Philly, their goals leader is Couturier with 24. Assists, Giroux, of course, with 44. Shots leader, points per game leader, Giroux's in both. In points per game, he's 1.07. Shots, 167. Goaltenders, not Giroux. You can't get the Vezina if he doesn't play goal. Hart is confirmed. He's 11-6-1 with a 924 save percentage. I would imagine a statue right next to Rocky's pretty quick. Talbot will likely be the backup, I would imagine. The Oilers played in Carolina tonight, so for Talbot to get to Philly, it's not that difficult. He'll be in Philly, I would think. Maybe with his Oilers gear and mask. 10-15-3 is Talbot's record. 893 save percentage, and he will probably be very happy to be in Philly. Although the defense in Philly has been talked about all year and how it's not very good. Same thing that's been said of Edmonton. We'll see how it turns out for him. Hopefully it turns out well. I like Talbot. And it's interesting because, of course, there's a Talbot and Hart connection there. So we'll see how it works out for them. We'll see how it works out for Philly. But don't take Detroit lightly. They will make you pay for that. Next up, St. Louis. 29-22-5 St. Louis. Now, a month ago, 6 weeks ago, St. Louis is done. They're not going to make it. They're selling. And now they look pretty darn solid. And they're in against the 23-11 Colorado Avalanche. I'll still classify them as reeling. I know they won their last game and it turned out pretty well for them, but I'll still call them reeling for now. But this is a game you have to win. If you're going to catch up, you're going to have to, in these matchups with division rivals, win the game and win it in regulation. St. Louis, over its last 5 games, of course, they shut out Arizona in Arizona 4-0. They won versus the Devils 8-3. They won at Nashville 5-4. They won versus Nashville 3-2. And they won at Tampa Bay 1-0, which was a huge statement game for them. Colorado, well, they won in Winnipeg 4-1. They lost at home to Toronto 5-2. They lost in Boston 2-1. They lost in New York against the Islanders 4-3. And they lost in Washington 4-3. The good news is they've only lost 1 out of their last 5 in regulation. The bad news is they've only won 1 of their last 5 games. Glass half empty, glass half full, right? On the road, St. Louis is 15-9-3. They're fantastic on the road. Versus the Central, they're 8-7-3 at home. Colorado's a mediocre 10-11-5. Versus the Central, also mediocre 5-7-3. St. Louis has won both meetings with Colorado this year, so they're trying to make it 3. Your goals leader for St. Louis is, of course, Tarasenko with 24. When he's on, Tarasenko might be the best goal scorer in the league. When he's cold, not so much. Your assist leader is O'Reilly with 36 points per game. O'Reilly leads there at 1.02. Shots leaders Tarasenko with 196. I expect Binnington here because they're riding the hot goalie while they can. He's 11-1-1 with a 931 save percentage. Allen 16-15-4, 898 save percentage. On the Colorado side, their goals leaders Landeskog, who finally got that 30th goal. He'd been sitting there for a bit. And that's his first 30-goal season, I believe. Your assist leader's Rantanen at 52, and he's also your points per game leader at 1.33, which is much lower than it was early in the year. Your shots leader is McKinnon with 247 goaltenders. I expect Varlamov. He's 14-14-8 with a 905 save percentage. Grubauer's the backup, 9-7-3 and an 890 save percentage. Not great. So for St. Louis, much like Philly, hot team in the league, hot young goaltender. Do not take your opponent lightly, or you'll probably find yourself eating the loss. Especially since Colorado may very well feel better about themselves because they beat Winnipeg, and maybe they come out in this one with a little more belief in themselves, get up early, get the crowd into it early, and just maybe. I know. It's a stretch, isn't it? But, St. Louis was dead 6 weeks ago too, and look where they are now. So things can change really quickly in this NHL. Last but not least, Columbus and Chicago. This is definitely not least. Might be the last game I'm covering, but it's definitely not least. For Columbus, there's a lot on the line right now. Play well, or they likely trade out Panarin and Bobrovsky, and the lower down this team is in the standings, the more futures they'll likely look for. Jarmo Kekalainen is watching very, very closely. 32-21-3 is the team's record. Chicago 24-25-9. Again, Chicago's in this race in the West mostly because of how poor the West has been this year. They've won 24, they've lost 34. But it doesn't matter right now, does it? They are 3 points out of the playoffs. They were 2 coming into tonight. They're 3 points out after Minnesota's overtime loss to the Devils and Corey Schneider. But Chicago's definitely in this. And if they get into the playoffs, they have your Hart Trophy winner in my eyes. Now, over the last 5 games, Columbus, they lost against the Islanders 3-0. That's after they beat Washington 3-0, both those games in Columbus. They won at Vegas 4-3. They won at Arizona 4-2, and they won at Carolina 6-3. The Islanders game, if they want to show us just a blip, they have to go in and beat Chicago in Chicago tomorrow. Now, for Chicago, over their last 5, they beat New Jersey 5-2. They lost at Boston 6-3. Before that, they won at home against Detroit 5-2 and Vancouver 4-3. And they won at Edmonton 6-2. At home, they're 13-10-6, whereas Colorado on the road is 17-9-1. That favors Colorado. Columbus. Columbus is 17-9-1 on the road. Colorado dreams of being 17-9-1 on the road. Versus the Central, Columbus is 7-4 versus the Metro. Chicago is 7-5-2, and Chicago did win the first meeting between these teams. This is the second and final meeting this year. We'll see how things go between Chicago and Columbus. I don't know how many times I said Colorado. I hope it wasn't a lot. Especially since Colorado's right next to Columbus. I really didn't plan this out well. I didn't realize I was going to be doing this late at night. Goals leaders for Columbus, Atkinson 31. And I keep doing plural because I'm used to doing multiple leaders of everything. So it's weird to just be doing one. The leader in assists is Panarin with 42. He also leads in goals or points per game at 1.19. Shots, Atkinson leads there at 217. Goaltenders, I expect Bobrovsky. He's 23-17-1 with a .903 save percentage. How many more games does he have in a Columbus net? Does he go to the end of the year? What's going to happen? Speculation will run rampant until next Monday. Korpisalo, 9-4-2 with a .901 save percentage. I expect him to be the backup. On the Chicago side, it is the Patrick Kane show. This guy is the show. Watch any game of Chicago's. This guy's absolutely on fire. 34 goals to lead the team, 51 assists to lead the team, 1.49 points per game to lead the team. How good is that? McDavid's at 1.46. That's how good Kane's playing right now. Shots, Kane leads there too with 228. McDavid has 173. What's up? Goaltending, Delia is 6-3-3 with a .916 save percentage. I expect him in net. Ward's 12-8-4 with an .898 save percentage. And a lot of talk now about Corey Crawford coming back. He's excited about the run that the Chicago Blackhawks have been on. And Jeremy Colleton has not ruled out having 3 goaltenders on the roster, which means somebody else would have to get cut to make that happen. Carrying 3 goaltenders is always a disaster. And if your team is in the running for a playoff spot and you're on a hot streak like Chicago, I don't know. I don't know if I want to mess with that. I understand that Ward's overall numbers aren't great at .898 especially, but he's been pretty good lately. And yeah, I don't know where you slot Crawford in right now, unless Delia becomes the third wheel. But his .916 save percentage and his 6-3-3 record tell you he needs to start. So it's going to be interesting to see what Chicago does. It's also going to be interesting to see what Columbus does from here. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. Just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.